These are 10 of the coolest PC games that you have to play. Some of them are new titles and others are a little bit older, but you cannot miss them. Let's start off with probably my favorite role-playing game of all time, which isn't Skyrim, it's actually Kingdom Come Deliverance. This RPG game often gets overlooked, and I do think it's a little bit underrated because of that factor. Now, it's a little bit different to a traditional RPG game that has magic and spells and all that type of crap. It's just super duper realistic, and it's set in the medieval time period. And instead of playing as some overpowered god who's an absolute beast, you just play as a regular blacksmith who's on a mission to sort of avenge his family. And this is where I often feel a bit disconnected in RPG games, is the character that you play as. Yeah, usually you can customize your character and name him Ben or whatever you want to call him, but then they can do all this crazy stuff and have a huge skill level as soon as you start the storyline, whereas with this, you have no idea how to use a sword, how to hold a shield, how to ride the horses properly. So as you gradually learn the gameplay elements as yourself, actually as a human being, what key does what, how could we do this, your character at the same time is developing and learning those skills within his story arc, which makes the story very relatable, and you get attached to what your character is actually doing. Now, you play as this guy called Henry, and not to ruin the story too much, but basically at the start of the game, stuff happens, and then you're left on your own, and you want to go and get revenge. And the whole time, you are exploring a very vast map with lots of different environments, and I loved how the environments were built out. Both the graphics are insane. When you play this on PC, you can crank it up, it looks amazing, but the graphics and the map, very nice and also super realistic. Like, the developers actually went to these locations in real life and recreated the villages exactly the same, with how the roads sort of go, how the trees are placed. There's a super cool dev vlog that shows the difference between the real environments and then the virtual environments and how accurate they've done the historical research on these things. Also, the soundtrack and music is very ambient within this title, and it very much sets the scene for medieval time period. And there's also a bunch of different things you can do when it comes to interacting with different characters. You can have relationships with different characters, as well as, of course, customizing Henry and taking him into an absolute beast when it comes to his abilities. There is rumored to be a sequel releasing very soon for Kingdom Come Deliverance, so it's a great time to play it now before that game gets announced and obviously comes out maybe in 2025. Would make sense based off of all of the leaks and rumors that I've seen online. At number 2, we have got Ready or Not, which is a very fun FPS shooting game. This is a tactical first-person shooter where you basically squad up and you go into these environments and you have to, a little bit like sort of like an action movie. You go in a squad of police guys and you got to sort of clear the area, save the hostage, take different things out, secure the objectives. I love tactical FPS shooters like this. Ready or Not has a very nice pacing to it. It's also got some cool AI elements where you do these basically PvE, where it's player versus environment, player versus AI. So you go into these different zones with your squad of friends, and then you communicate over the radios and take out all of the different terrorists or whatever inside of that building. I also think graphically it's probably one of the best tactical FPS shooters. Sometimes when you play these FPS shooter tactical games like the Squad and different stuff like that, Armor as well, you take a little bit of a sacrifice in terms of the graphics or the animations, whereas this, I still feel like it sustains a really high level of graphic fidelity with all the different lens flares and the lighting and all the atmosphere each of the levels have, whilst also still having that realistic element to it that you know and love from the gun mechanics. When I played it for a bit last summer, I loved the squad up feature where you would start off in almost a locker room and you would get all your equipment and your guns, and you could wander around basically a HQ and base, and then once everyone in the team was ready, you would go into this little rectangle and square, and then that would launch into the matchmaking and take you into the actual mission. But it was quite a nice and fun way of making that gun customization and pre-prep within the lobby a little bit more interactive and also more fun, because sometimes you could sit there matchmaking for ages just in a main menu, so at least you could run around and practice your shooting, do some little drills, try out different attachments, and then jump into the war zone effectively. Next up, we've got one of my favorite genres of games ever made, and that's simulator games. Now, not stuff like Goat Simulator. I don't really like that type of stuff, like silly, pointless games. More realistic simulators like Microsoft Flight Simulator, Train Simulator, more specifically, American Truck Simulator. Probably one of my all-time favorite games is Euro Truck Simulator 2. I've played that extensively, bought it multiple different times with all the different DLCs that you can get to then add on to the map and just expand it out. I played it way back when it first came out on disc on PC. You literally had to go to like a local store and buy it on disc, and then it eventually came to the Steam store in like sort of 2014 or something like that. But I was playing it as an OG. I had Euro Truck Simulator 1 and then Euro Truck Simulator 2, which was a completely revolutionized game compared to Euro Truck Simulator 1. The amount of times I've replayed this game, restarted this game, had a new save is been off scale, especially before Steam cloud saves existed. If you ever got like a virus on your PC or something stupid because you were installing mods for DayZ, you would like lose your big Euro Truck Simulator save, which was devastating. So now that cloud saves exist, means I've been able to have the same save for multiple years now. Anyways, a much newer and more updated version of Euro Truck Simulator is, of course, American Truck Simulator. And obviously, I recently went to America for the CES show on our main channel. We went out to Vegas and filmed loads of stuff in Vegas and LA. So I actually experienced what America was like for the first time as a human being. And I thought it was super duper cool. And then obviously, because I know what Europe's like, because I'm from that part of the world, it's been much more insightful when playing American Truck Simulator. I've gone ahead and actually bought this game since going to America. And I now understand like how the roads work. Originally, I never dived into American Truck Simulator because I just predominantly played Euro Truck Simulator because I understood all the rules on the roads, how all the junctions and roundabouts and crap work. But going out and actually driving in America in real life made me understand all the different interstates and the blocks and everything that you can do and all the different routes. So this has made it much more enjoyable to play this version of the game on PC. Because in the past, when I tried to play it back in 2015-16 when it came out, I just didn't feel any relatability to the American states and stuff that was actually happening. And also, I didn't really understand the relation of the states and how they connected until I actually went out there and seen how that country operates. So American Truck Simulator is super cool. It's much bigger and more vast than Euro Truck Simulator. It's also got much larger trucks and new features added into this version of the game. And of course, if you are one of my American viewers, which is usually about 60% of our audience, I think you probably prefer this more than Euro Truck Simulator for the same reasons why I preferred Euro Truck Simulator over American Truck Simulator until recently. For number 4, I'm actually going to share with you 2 different games because both of them aren't fully released yet on the Steam store. And these are both Body Cam and Unrecorded. Now, fundamentally, both these games look almost identical. I ain't kidding. For a while, I thought this was the same game. And then I realized on my Steam wishlist that there were 2 separate titles that I'd added to the Steam wishlist. Now, I think Unrecorded came first and Body Cam came second. I'm not sure. I could have that completely wrong. But it's basically been around 12 to 18 months since both of these games have been floating around on the internet. But when you look at the gameplay on both of them, they look insanely realistic. So, of course, they're like a tactical FPS shooter, a little bit like what I was talking about earlier with Ready or Not. But the difference this time is, instead of it being from your eyeballs, it's from the sort of camera look on the person's chest. Obviously, all like the military, police, stuff like that now wear body cams on their chest. So the point of perspective within the gameplay is basically with this camera filter applied to it. And some of this footage looks like a GoPro. It looks like real life footage in terms of the aesthetic and overall design that the developers have done on the games. Now, some YouTubers have had the opportunity and privilege to play these games early, the likes of sort of Jack Frags, those types of channels that I really enjoy watching. And from what I've seen from their interpretations of the game, it seems to be very, very enjoyable as a title, and it's something to definitely be quite excited about. But it's new and fresh because of the approach with the art style and perspective of the FPS shooter. I'm personally excited for both of these games and can't wait to see them to hit the store, whether that be in early access or with a full release. But let me know what you think down below. Which do you think looks better, Body Cam or Unrecorded, or do you think they're both the exact same game? I'm not too sure at this point. Probably one of the greatest game franchises of all time was Guitar Hero. This is when gaming was fun, like back on the Xbox 360, the Nintendo Wii, PS3, even the PS2. I think Guitar Hero was even on that. We had Guitar Hero, and like games were still physical in terms of like they would release a game and it had a crazy accessory to go with it, whether that be like a steering wheel, a massive joystick, a guitar, drums, something super daft, or even like a gun to sort of plug in and connect it. I felt like game developers were being really creative with both technology and also the games at the same time, and how they could join forces to create unique experiences in that sort of 2000s to 2010s era. The Xbox 360 Kinect was also a prime example of a product that I personally thought was good and did push the boundaries. Yes, some of the games were awful, but like Kinect Sports and stuff like that wasn't too bad, and I actually think the Kinect was very fun. Some of my favorite games as a kid were on the Kinect, and some of my best social experiences of playing with my family were on the Kinect, with like Just Dance and like Kinect Sports Season 2, playing the darts, just funny things like that at Christmas. It's one of those accessories that could get the entire family involved with the gaming, which is very, very rare. Usually it's segregated. Just the young people will play the games and the old people will play a board game of Monopoly or something. But this really joins the families together. And Guitar Hero was one of those games for me as well as a kid. When we got a Nintendo Wii, everyone in the house could play Guitar Hero. They loved playing Guitar Hero because the music was cool. There was a huge selection of different songs within there. It brought everyone together, and it was one of my favorite games of all time. And actually one of the reasons why I play guitar in real life was because of Guitar Hero 3 and Guitar Hero World Tour, stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, Guitar Hero doesn't really exist anymore in the way that we know and loved it, and other things have come and gone like Rocksmith and just haven't really quite nailed it. But luckily, if you own a PC, there is still a way to access every single Guitar Hero ever made, and that's with a download called Clone Hero, which is essentially an emulator of the Guitar Hero games. Clone Hero is this like free download you can get on the internet, and it has thousands and thousands of songs from every single single Guitar Hero game ever released. You can even use a real Guitar Hero controller with a couple of adapters sort of connected into your PC, and it works exactly the same. But you've got a couple of advantages. You can also import your own songs or download songs from basically a community area. So if there's a song that you particularly love and want to play in Guitar Hero that's never been released in a DLC on Guitar Hero, you can go and download it because somebody might have notated it out or created a version of it. So it basically is Guitar Hero but on steroids. It's like an enhanced version where there's a huge community that's making an unlimited amount of content that's all for free that you can just install and add into your own game saves. It's great to see that the Guitar Hero community is still alive within Clone Hero and that the franchise is still continuing. The only difficult part when it comes to playing Clone Hero is actually getting your hands on a Guitar Hero controller. Recently, there has been a few more released on Amazon under some third-party brands that work perfectly fine, but if you want an official controller, trying to get one in good condition on eBay can be pretty difficult. Speaking of some old school games that have been reimagined, Black Mesa is one that I particularly enjoy. Now, Half-Life and Half-Life 2 is probably some of the greatest PC games ever made, that sort of Half-Life franchise, but obviously they are pretty old. So when I started PC gaming, everyone was telling me, you need to play Half-Life, you need to play Half-Life 2, Half-Life. So I tried playing Half-Life, but coming from a kid that is used to 4K 60 FPS or something and going back and playing one of those really old games, it still looked okay, but just was a bit dead in terms of atmosphere and, you know, ray tracing. It didn't really feel like much was going on, so I don't think I fully appreciated how groundbreaking those Half-Life titles sort of were. But then when I was a kid, there was a release of a title called Black Mesa, which was a fan remade version of Half-Life 1 essentially. It was essentially the exact same game, Half-Life 1 with the same storyline, same sort of stuff, but the gameplay was evolved greatly to really modernize it, and of course it had better graphics, it was built on a new engine, so it's essentially like a remake and remaster of Half-Life, but never officially released by Valve. It was done by the community. Black Mesa is a very fun game, and it gives you that old school PC title experience that you don't really get from modern games, but while still feeling fresh and new and not like it's badly dated, like you're basically playing a game from the early 2000s. It still feels pretty up to par. Originally, this was a single player only game with essentially the Half-Life storyline, but more recently they did patch out the game and add, I think it's 8 multiplayer maps, so they've taken different Half-Life maps and now added an online multiplayer element to Black Mesa, which builds out obviously the content that's available to you beyond just playing what was originally just a single player title. A game that I was pretty shocked to see turn 10 years old in 2023 was Rust. Rust's one of those online survival games that I think is pretty fun and cool, but it depends what server you experience, whether you play in one of those more serious servers where you really truly play what Rust is, or whether you play in like a random open lobby type thing where there's a lot of people messing about. The experience can differ greatly, but I had been playing Rust since the original version back in 2013 when it was in early access and the graphics were absolutely hideous. But around, I think it was 2017, 2016, 18, they did a complete re-engine overhaul of Rust and they put it on a new engine with new graphics and took it to a completely new height. When you look at the original Rust compared to the one that people play today, graphically, these games are unrecognizable. You wouldn't even think it was the same game. You think it was basically like Rust 3 or something, or Rust 2, you know, it was like one that was released years and years later, and Rust was originally on the PS1 or something stupid. But when the developers did this engine change, it was probably the best move they could have ever done in terms of expanding the lifespan of the Rust game, because obviously survival games are pretty common. When sort of Rust came out originally, it was sort of DayZ. It was that era when DayZ mod was super popular, so it was relatively new concept on the Steam store. But you fast forward 10 years and everybody's done a survival open world free roam game in a similar vein, and most of those games consist of pretty awful graphics, clunky gameplay, and stuff that just feels a little bit unfinished. And that's exactly what Rust felt like before it got updated. At least now it feels a little bit more slick. Now, I've played it a few times since its reboot and remaster, but unfortunately I don't have the same group of friends that I used to play Rust with back in the day. You know, we've all grown up a little bit, so they've sort of moved on. They maybe only play on console. They don't really have the time to dedicate to a survival game like this, because it is pretty full on. You know, you need to build out a base, you need to check on the base. I think your character in Rust like literally sleeps in the area where you log out at, so you need to log in regularly to make sure that you've not been looted. So there's a lot of maintaining to your character within a game like this. So if you are going to go ahead and play Rust, ensure that you do have a lot of time to dedicate to it, and also you maybe have a group of friends that are going to join you on this quest into the world of Rust, so you can truly have fun on the entire experience, because playing it on your own isn't quite the same. Now, if you don't have any friends to play with, this next game might actually be perfect for you, and that is My Summer car. I remember when this game came out, it was massively hyped beyond crazy. Every YouTuber was playing My Summer Car back in, was it 2016, 17, 18, that sort of era whenever it launched in early access. Now, when this game first came out, it wasn't really my cup of tea. I didn't really see what the hype was for such a game until I actually tried it out on a friend's laptop. Then I realized that the game actually had some very clever mechanics to the gameplay. So My Summer Car, in essence, is you play as a character who has a project car and you need to rebuild it. So you've got to fix the engine up, you've got to improve the brakes, you've got to add different parts and components, you've got to maybe change this broken bumper. Basically, you're renovating a wrecked car into a pimp boy racer car and your exact vision for what you want it to look like. Now that sounds like any sort of driving game that you've done before. Need for Speed, Forza, nothing too crazy, car mechanic simulator, it's just standard car customization. But the difference here is you are in a real life simulator. So it's a survival game at the same time. So you've got your car, you've got your house, you work on the car on your drive. You've then also got to look after your character. So you've got to get food, you've got to feed your thing, you've got to look after the house, you've got to look after the car. But where it gets challenging is it's a single life game. So as soon as your character dies, that's it. So whether you crashed your car, whether your car blew up on you because you didn't maintain it or fix it properly, whether you got ran over by a bus, whatever happened, or you didn't eat enough sausages and burger and drink beer, whatever happened to your character, it would then die, and that would mean all of your progress is completely lost. So that's where you could say the excitement element comes into play on a game like this. And I believe this is what gives it that degree of difference within the marketplace of essentially like car mechanic simulator. Anyone who has played My Summer Car will admit that this game is incredibly addictive and fun to play, so do be warned if you go ahead and install it. Now this next game is probably the first AAA title on this list, and that's Red Dead Redemption 2. So far I've tried to focus on games that are pretty much exclusive to the PC platform and something special and unique because of that, but this is obviously a game that you could play on PS4, PS5, Xbox, and of course on the PC. Now Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PC, I personally feel like it's a completely different experience to the PS4 Pro version or the Xbox One X version that was available when this game came out. Now of course, when you play this game on PC, you have so much more options when it comes to the graphics fidelity of the gameplay. Now I've even played Red Dead Redemption 2 multiple times at 8K. That TV behind me is an 8K TV, and on my main channel we've tried it at 8K on an RTX 3090 Ti and also on an RTX 4090 across a period of different play tests on that channel and building different systems. And this game at 8K is absolutely breathtaking, and it shows how far ahead of its time the game actually was back in 2018 when it launched on those subpar consoles, really, in terms of performance for playing a game of this caliber. Now that we are starting to get graphics cards and hardware capable of playing Red Dead Redemption at insanely high graphic settings at like 4K, 5K, 8K resolution, really starts to show the effort developers like Rockstar do put into their games. Because even like GTA 5, GTA 4, those PC versions still hold up so well decades later on the PC with modern hardware, because of how much they pushed their engines at the time of development. Also, when it comes to playing Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PC, not only do you get better graphics, but I feel like the pacing of the game feels much nicer. When you play it with a mouse and keyboard, as crazy as that sounds, I found it nice to just access all the different things quite easily, like all your different weapons, have extra key mappings compared to the controller. But also with a mouse and keyboard, I play a game slower. I'm more willing to just walk through a town or walk up a mountain rather than sprint everywhere or like rush around everywhere like when you're playing with the controller. I feel like I'm much more frantic with the controller, whereas with mouse and keyboard, I often just take my time, look around, and absorb the environment much better. In addition to this, of course, if you're playing this on PC, you can also change the resolution that you play it at depending on your monitor. So I've also gone through phases where I've played Red Dead Redemption 2 on a super ultra wide display that like wrapped right around me, and you see this huge field of view that's absolutely mind-blowing. So not only do you have the gameplay happening right in front of you, but you can also appreciate all of the graphics and everything to the side with all the mountains and the trees and all of the extra details that just pass you by when you're playing on a 16:9 panel. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of those games that I never get sick of revisiting because there's always something new that I find and discover, or that I forgot the game even had. Now for the final game, this is a pretty hardcore racing simulator, and that is iRacing. Now I feel like iRacing sort of showcases what's possible on the PC gaming platform. Now of course there's loads of racing games available in the world, and some of them are simulators and competitive, like of course a Competizione, those are available on console, but iRacing is exclusive to the PC, and I feel like it provides something completely different in terms of its community and the level of player that are on that game. If you don't know what iRacing is, this is basically a racing simulator that has licenses and also leagues. So you start off with a rookie license in a little Mazda MX-5, and you have to work up from having 0 license all the way through the different classes in order to qualify and partake in different communities and races. This essentially is like a real life racing license, but virtually, like the same sort of progression to an extent. You level up gradually, and then you can access that car. You can then race a slightly quicker car. What I like about this is when you eventually make it into the higher tiers of licenses, you're racing with other people that have also earned that license properly, so they're not going to crash into you and just completely mess about in the lobby, because there's also a penalty system where if you cause collisions or you're a dangerous driver, that then means you lose an iRating score, like your safety score, and it means you get pushed down into rubbish lobbies with other people that do that. So there's a lot of serious people that play it, and they're not messing around like in Forza. When you try and play a serious race on Forza or F1, when you try and do a multiplayer race on F1, everyone just crashed into each other, and it just isn't fun. You want to race a game, not play dodgems. Now, iRacing hasn't got the greatest graphics in the world. It is running on a pretty old engine. Now, this game's existed since like 2006, 7, something absolutely crazy. And it is a little bit expensive to play this game because it is more serious. So you do have a monthly subscription in order to access the base contents of the game. That's a couple of tracks and different cars, like the essentials you need to really get started. But if you want to compete in more complex cups, like the GT3, Porsche cups, things like that, you have to purchase those cars as additional extras, and also the courses that are in that season of races. Now, there are some cool in-game events that happen yearly that you can partake in, especially if you're quite good at racing games, and there are cash prizes available. So you can compete in things like 24-hour Le Mans, a GT3 Porsche Cups, and you can actually win real-life checks or even in-game stuff like some in-game vouchers. So it means there's a bit of fun and almost status you can get from playing a game like this. If you actually became insanely good, you can race in different communities, whether that be league racing casually or in the official iRacing tournaments, and then maybe become an esports gamer or something crazy. But even if you're not interested in becoming the top 0.1% of drivers and winning £500,000 or something crazy in a tournament, there are still league races where you might win $400. So you pay to enter this league, and then there's maybe a first, second, and third prize. So it just means there's a purpose to you doing virtual laps for no reason other than the fun factor. There's a bit of risk and stuff at stake that just could make it potentially a bit more enjoyable for you. Now, of course, these are 10 of the coolest games that you should play if you own a gaming PC. But if you want to see some of the best free games that you can download if you're gaming on a budget, you should check out this video next and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this.